Okay, so let's dive in. Today, we're looking at high finance.
Yeah.
Fortunes made and lost in, well, the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
John Paulson,
Oh,
hedge
yeah.
fund manager, Wall Street legend, or infamous, I guess it depends,
Right.
for that billion-dollar bet against
Yep.
the subprime mortgage market back in 2007.
That's the one.
So is he a visionary or a con artist?
That's the question, isn't it? He's made some incredibly bold predictions.
Yeah.
Some have paid off spectacularly. But he's also been accused of using some pretty questionable tactics.
Right.
Even profiting from crises.
Okay, so we've got a lot to dig into here today.
Absolutely.
We've got articles about his early career, investment strategies, even legal documents,
Ooh, wow.
detailing lawsuits against his firm,
Okay.
and even opinion pieces about his political views and philanthropy.
A lot to cover.
A lot to cover. So we're going to try to figure out where John Paulson falls on the spectrum, from financial genius to, well, something a little less flattering.
Yeah, and it's important to remember this isn't about judging.
No.
We're just here to lay out the facts,
Right.
the different perspectives, and hopefully help you, the listener,
Yeah.
form your own opinion.
Exactly.
An informed one.
Okay, so let's rewind the clock way back to 2006.
Okay.
Housing market's booming. Everybody and their brother is saying the real estate is a surefire investment. And then you have John Paulson kind of swimming against the tide with this idea that the whole thing is going to implode.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It seemed crazy at the time.
Because Paulson wasn't just going on a gut feeling here.
Right.
He and his team at Paulson and Company were analyzing all this mortgage data.
Yeah.
And they started noticing some really disturbing trends.
Like what?
Well, a huge number of these subprime mortgages.
Wait, hold on.
Sure.
What exactly are subprime mortgages?
Okay, so imagine someone wants to buy a house, but they don't have the best credit history, you know?
Right.
They might be a little risky in terms of missing payments.
Uh-huh.
That's a subprime borrower.
Okay.
Now, banks still give them loans.
Yeah.
But at a much higher interest rate.
To compensate for the risk.
Exactly.
Right.
And these subprime mortgages get bundled together with thousands of others.
Thousands.
Into these things called mortgage-backed securities. Investors buy these thinking they're getting a nice diversified investment with pretty good returns.
Okay.
So Paulson saw through all of that.
So he did, yeah.
He and his team realized that a lot of these subprime mortgages were basically ticking time bombs.
Oh, wow.
Borrowers were taking on way more debt than they could handle.
Yeah.
Housing prices were, completely inflated.
Right.
When interest rates rose, which they inevitably do,
Yeah.
defaults would just skyrocket, and those mortgage-backed securities would be worthless.
So he started betting against them, right?
He did.
That's what shorting the market means.
Precisely. He was betting that the value of these mortgage-backed securities would plummet.
Yeah.
He was right.
He was so right.
When that housing bubble burst in 2007 and triggered the financial crisis, Paulson's fund made billions.
It's crazy.
It really is. Gregory Zuckerman's book, The Greatest Trade Ever.
I've heard of that.
It chronicles this whole saga.
Oh, wow.
It reads like a financial thriller. It's wild.
Okay, but this is where things get a little, well, murky, right?
How so?
Well, some people argue that Paulson didn't just predict the crisis, he actually helped create it.
That's a serious accusation.
It is.
There's been so much debate about whether his actions actually contributed to the severity of the crisis.
Right.
Some critics point to the fact that he was not only betting against these mortgage-backed securities, but he also encouraged banks to create more.
He did.
Yeah, knowing they were toxic.
So, I mean, what do you think? Was he a visionary who just saw the writing on the wall?
It's hard to say.
Right.
I mean, was he just a shrewd opportunist?
Yeah.
Profiting off a system he knew was flawed?
Right.
Maybe even helped push it over the edge?
I mean, those are some big questions for everyone listening.
Yeah, definitely something to think about.
Okay, so let's move on to Paulson and Company, his hedge fund. We have sources here about their investment strategies, which were initially quite successful, from what I've read. They specialized in something called event-driven investing.
Oh, yeah. So that's basically anticipating how certain events like mergers or acquisitions, bankruptcies even, will impact a company's stock price. So they do their research, find these undervalued companies, and invest in a way that they could profit from those events.
Okay, so like, for example, if they thought a company was ripe for a takeover.
Right. They might buy a large chunk of the company, try to influence the bidding process.
Oh, wow.
Drive up the price.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But then, of course, things start to get a little less clear-cut, right?
A little less clean.
A little less clean. We have some court documents here that detail a lawsuit filed against Paulson and Company's real estate unit by 5 Mile Capital Partners.
All right.
This lawsuit is about the sale of 4 bankrupt resorts.
It's resorts, okay.
So 5 Mile had lent money for these resorts. And when Paulson's real estate unit sold them, they allege that they didn't get the best price for the assets.
Oh, so they're saying Paulson's people cheated them out of money?
Millions,
Millions, wow.
But Paulson's company denied these allegations.
They did.
Calling it a scorched earth assault.
Right.
And they claimed that they acted in good faith.
So, I mean, this really makes you think, what was Paulson's role in all of this?
Right. Was he directly involved?
Or was this just his subordinates?
Right. How much oversight did he have?
Those are some good questions.
Yeah, we'll be exploring those questions and many more.
Okay.
As we delve deeper into John Paulson's world. So stick with us.
Stay tuned.
As we continue this deep dive.
All right. Yeah, it really is interesting how this lawsuit gives us a peek behind the curtain of a hedge fund.
Right. I mean, all that pressure to get those returns.
Yeah, and the ethical lines that maybe get a little blurry.
It really does raise more questions than it answers.
It does.
And speaking of questions, we have a whole stack of sources here.
Okay.
Focusing on John Paulson's political views and philanthropy.
Okay, now this is where things get even more complex.
Yeah, so Paulson has been a huge donor to Republican candidates.
Right.
Romney and Trump in particular.
Yep. And he's also been a very vocal defender of the U.S. tax system.
Yeah.
Which, you know, some people find a little ironic.
Right. Considering how he made his billions.
Exactly. By kind of exploiting the same financial system that Occupy Wall Street was protesting, which he was very critical of.
Right. Right. And then there's that letter he co-wrote. To the Spence School.
Yeah.
Where his daughters were students.
Yeah.
Accusing them of anti-white indoctrination.
Yeah. Because of their diversity and inclusion efforts.
Yeah, it was a pretty controversial letter.
Definitely made some headlines.
It did.
Sparked a huge debate about political correctness and private schools.
It definitely showed a side of Paulson. That, well, a lot of people were surprised by.
Surprised and maybe a little unsettled.
Yeah, but then on the other side, he's also given away hundreds of millions of dollars.
He has.
To Harvard, NYU, the Central Park Conservancy.
I mean, some people might argue that his philanthropy is just a way to kind of offset any negative views about his business practices or his political positions.
Yeah, others might say it's just him wanting to give back.
That's a tough one.
It's really hard to know, right?
It is.
How do you separate the person from the actions?
Right.
Does this make you view him any more favorably?
It's tough to say.
Or does it feel like he's just trying to clean up a messy image?
Yeah, it's a question we're thinking about.
It is.
But let's shift gears a little.
Yeah?
We've got some interesting sources about Paulson's predictions about the global financial system.
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets interesting.
It really is.
He's been saying for years that the U.S. dollar is going to decline. Gold will rise, and the world will just move away from the dollar.
That's a pretty bold prediction.
It is.
So de-dollarization, right? Essentially, it means reducing the dollar's role in the global economy.
Okay.
Other countries might start using other currencies, holding less dollar reserves.
Right.
It could be gradual.
Right.
Or, like Paulson thinks, accelerated by some big event.
He argues that the U.S. isn't the economic power it used to be, and that the Federal Reserve, well, they've been printing too much money.
Which has fueled inflation, right?
Yeah.
And eroded faith in the dollar.
Yeah, and he also points to the fact that countries like China are actively looking for alternatives to the dollar.
Right.
Promoting their own currencies.
Yep, and making new trade agreements that don't involve us.
Yeah.
And there is some proof to back up his claims.
Like what?
Well, think about it. Central banks all over the world have been buying record amounts of gold.
They have.
Which, you know, suggests they're trying to diversify away from the dollar.
So is he just a visionary? Or is he just trying to hype up gold?
I don't know. It's hard to say for sure. I mean, it's hard to tell what the future holds.
Right.
But he raises some interesting points.
He does.
It definitely makes us think critically about the dollar in the world.
Okay. Right.
Let's fast forward to today.
All right.
Where is John Paulson now?
Yeah. How's he doing?
Well, his net worth has definitely taken a hit these past few years.
Oh.
Forbes estimates it to be around $3 billion.
Okay.
Which is a lot less than his peak back in 2010.
$38 billion, right?
Yep, $38 billion.
It's a big drop.
It is. Even the best investors don't always win.
I guess that's true. Even in the world of finance, fortunes can be fleeting.
That's for sure.
So what's he up to these days?
Well, it seems some of his investments haven't done as well as he'd hoped, but he's still incredibly wealthy and politically active.
Yeah.
He was a huge fundraiser for Trump's 2024 campaign.
Oh, wow.
And there were even rumors he might be Treasury Secretary.
If Trump wins, right?
Exactly.
Wow, John Paulson back in Washington.
That would be interesting.
It would be a wild chapter in his story.
It would.
So it's not just politics, though, right?
No.
His personal life has also been making headlines.
It has.
He recently got divorced.
From Jenny Zaharia.
Right. Very public, very messy.
Mm-hmm.
I think she sued him for $1 billion.
That is a lot of money.
Even for a hedge fund billionaire.
It is. It really highlights the complexities of wealth.
Right.
The challenges of having a personal life when all your finances are always being watched.
Yeah.
And now he's engaged to a much younger woman.
Which, well, it's just given the tabloids more to talk about.
It has.
Okay, so John Paulson. Mm-hmm. Never a dull moment.
Never.
But after going through all these sources, are we any closer to answering the question, is he a visionary or a con artist? Yeah, it really makes you think, how does anyone handle all that?
It does. All that money, everyone watching your every move.
And how do you even tell the difference anymore?
What do you mean?
Well, is he a visionary or is he just a con artist who's really good at playing the game?
Ah, I see what you mean.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack here.
There is.
So after all this, what do you think? Is he a visionary? Or is he just taking advantage of a system that, well...
That's broken.
That's broken, yeah.
Honestly, it's tough to say. There are good arguments on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny he's had incredible success.
Absolutely.
I mean, he predicted the housing crisis, built a successful hedge fund.
Right.
He's clearly a brilliant guy.
No question.
And you have to think about his philanthropy.
Right. He's given away a lot of money.
Yeah.
To a lot of different causes.
It makes you think he has some kind of social conscience.
Maybe, but then you have all those questionable tactics.
Right.
Allegations of, profiting from these crises. And it just feels like he's always operating in this gray area.
Pushing the boundaries of what's okay.
Yeah, that 5 Mile Capital lawsuit. I mean, even if he wasn't directly involved, that makes you question the culture at his firm.
Yeah, and his political views?
Yeah, especially that letter. A lot of people were really turned off by that.
They were.
Yeah.
It's hard to see him as this generous person after something like that.
It is. It seems like with John Paulson, there's always something more to it.
He's not an easy guy to figure out.
Not at all.
It's what makes him so interesting to talk about.
Yeah, it's true.
So I guess we can't really give you a straight answer.
Not really.
Visionary or con artist?
It's up to you to decide.
It is. We've presented the facts.
Laid out the arguments.
Hopefully given you a better picture of who John Paulson is.
Hopefully a more nuanced picture of how he operates.
So as you go about your day, think about this.
Okay.
In a world where money and power seem to be everything, how do we even measure success?
That's a big question.
Is it all about the money?
Right.
Or is there more to it?
Is there a moral side?
A moral side, something we shouldn't ignore.
Definitely something to think about.
And how do we separate the good from the bad?
Right. How do we know who's genuine?
Yeah.
Who's just manipulating us?
Those are questions we all need answers to.
We do.
They're bigger than just John Paulson.
Much bigger.
So hopefully this has given you something to think about.
I hope so.
Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep asking those tough questions.
And keep digging.
And keep digging. That's what we do.